I'd like to welcome everyone to the June 3rd work session, the Board of Education. I will this time turn it over to the items of information with Dr. Spence. And I just want to let everybody know that John Medalla is on the phone. Hank, you're going to probably come in at some point.
First, I want to start with Ms. Sills with a special recognition.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to have our Board of Education see and acknowledge Ms. Gail Habersham. Ms. Habersham is a retiree from the Glynn County School System this year from Glynn Learning Center. She started in 1990 at Goodyear Elementary School. Yes. As a paraprofessional. She went on in 2006 to Performance Learning Center as support personnel. We really couldn't put into words exactly what she did there because she did so much there. And her former supervisor is here, Dr. Sheila Spalding. And then from 2012, she went to Jackson Learning Center, which is now the Glynn Learning Center, where she continued that support for our students. She is retiring this year with 30 years of service to the Glynn County Schools. And we wanted to acknowledge her publicly so that you all could see her. Excuse me, 31 with her sick leave time. 31 years with her sick leave time. I wanted you all to see her, acknowledge her, and just congratulate her on all the hard work she has given to our Glynn County schools. And I'd like to present you with this from us. And it says, Glynn County Schools recognizes Gail Habersham upon the occasion of her retirement and in recognition of your service and contributions to the Glynn County school system. And here is something for you and your husband. And congratulations. I'm sorry. And Dr. Spence is going to take a picture with you and Dr. Spalding.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
All right, next I have Ms. Preston.
Okay. Can you pull up the,
Wow. Right.
the only two changes we've had really to the general fund since the last time we discussed this is, the property insurance. We got the proposal for next year and it's going up in total by about $10,000. And then Steve Waters had gotten a grant from Atlanta Falcons to start girls flag football. So the money that he's getting is going to pay for all the equipment for both schools, and then we pick up the coaching supplements. Just scroll down. Keep going. So I'm still leaving the property value increase at 4%. We'll get that sometime in July and then go through the whole millage rate process. Hopefully we'll be able to roll back the rate and not have to worry about public hearings. Our QBE decrease ended up being a total of $909,100. We are down this year 483 FTEs, so that affects us for the following year. And the state is not holding systems hold harmless on that like they did during the midterms. So we're taking a hit on that for next year. And then you know about the TRS rate going up slightly. So the bottom line is we'll start the year with an estimated fund balance of 23.4. Although when you look at our financial reports, we're obviously saving money again this year, and our revenues are actually up, and I'll go through that in a minute. Total budgeted revenues will start the year next year with 140.9 and expenditures with 143.6. If you notice, I went ahead and made an entry to going to book a operating transfer of $5.5 million to the local capital projects fund for the excess of 50% over the maximum fund balance. So we'll projected ended fund balance of 20.6. The last page is, the one pager that we put in the newspaper, and that has to sit for 2 weeks and then get adopted. So what I need to ask for your input on is, I'm not sure if I'll get it in the paper by Saturday, because sometimes they give me a 2-day window. If not, I'll put it in the paper Monday, which would mean we would need a special call board meeting towards the end of June. anytime after the 21st, maybe at lunch one day, just come in and I think they may have HR stuff on it too.
We'll probably have HR.
Is there a day that's good for you guys at the end of the June?
Unfortunately, I'm out of town that week of the 21st, but
You are?
yes, ma'am.
We can do it the
I mean,
28th,
but I don't
29th.
have to
But
be
if we
here.
got, if we still have 4, I mean,
Right.
that
All you
don't
need is
leave you
4.
out, but,
Yeah.
if that's how the timing works out, then
Do what you gotta do.
But you available the 28th, didn't you say the 28th is a good?
The next following week, we can either do it that Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, the 28th, 29th, or 30th. Just by June 30th.
Like I said, you can carry on whatever. I'm just letting you know I'm out.
How about, is the
Y'all
rest
do
of you
do what you
in
gotta
town?
do.
I'll be here.
You'll be-
So, whatever.
Are you in, you're in town too, the end of June? Okay, so you want us to come up with a date, time, y'all like lunch, is that good? Okay. Well, I'll see what fits with.
How's June 23rd at 11:30?
What day is that?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Okay, that's fine.
I'll put that down, Ms.
Okay.
Brett. Okay.
If you just shoot an email out, or something like that. fill them up.
Okay, so we'll move on to the financial report for April. For the general fund, we had two budget amendments that changed the overall expenditure, revenue expenditures. We had an increase from the state preschool grant of $13,500 and an increase from the hygiene grant of $1,800. The year-to-date revenues represent 94.1% of the budget. Local tax receipts were 4.1, which is high for April, but that's because we got our public utility money. It comes all at once. And that's over $2 million. Year-to-date expenses represent 78.6% of the budget, and we're 83% through the year. I think you've already stated that, April, we had a record high sales tax month of 2.4. Compared to last year, that's 28% higher than last April. May, we had another high of 2.5 million.
Shut
in
up.
sales tax.
Wow.
It's crazy what's going on. Although, it's gonna be interesting to see how all this plays out, because, cars are shortaged, the chips that go in the cars.
Right.
We tried to go out to eat Memorial Day. Broken Sword couldn't serve dinner because their staff didn't show up. I mean, restaurants can't get workers. So at some point, that's going to affect the sales tax rate. Our revenues are up, and a lot of that has to do with, $1 million of that is intangible, and real estate, 1.3 million is intangible. Record is refinancing. When you refinance, we get a percentage of that. The car sales revenue is up 1.4 million for us over budget. I think we all know people have been buying cars like crazy, but that's going to come to us halt soon. And then our collection rate is up. Chapman's collecting our taxes like he says he is. So, and if you look at the expenditures, we're trailing behind. Our biggest category is salaries and fringe benefits, of about 3%, 3 and 4% in each category. So we're going to have some savings again at the end of this school year. Part of that has to do with the first CARES Act. We charged out to the special revenue fund, and I took it out of the general fund. And we're still coming up with a plan for CARES Act, the big pot of CARES Act 3 that we got. I know we've asked for additional staff for next year, and I need to get all that into the special revenue category, but I think we've almost got a plan to spend out the CARES Act too.
We should have something in July to explain.
And I learned another thing the other day. With this CARES Act, we can actually charge out an indirect cost rate. So like for instance, if we spend $10 million in a year on CARES Act, the general fund can charge the federal fund 10% of those expenditures and put that back into the general fund. So that's another way for us to capture some of that money instead of me moving salaries and benefits. So that'll benefit us, and we'll be able to save some money that way. Any questions?
You want us to keep going?
Yep. So next, I think,
I know John is on the phone, but he's happy for estimating fund balance being over 20 million. I know he's happy about that, but he's just not here to spirit. But I think he hears on the phone. He's happy.
He's still there.
oh, yeah.
He's happy. He looks happy. He looks happy over there.
What's my next proposed item? I cannot read it.
You got the budget adoption bid for non-food items.
Okay. That, we went out for bid, for, non-food paper products, and, Imperial Dade was the lowest bidder, Jacksonville for $109,575.90. And that's on the board agenda for Tuesday. The next one actually is a rollover bid for, pizza. So, the vendor is extending the pricing for this current school year as they did last year. You'll see the bid, where it was, done last May, 2020. We're doing several of those this year. The next one is Williams Seafood, also rolling over for this fiscal year.
Are you in item D? Is that the one you're talking about right now? I mean,
D is
E.
pizza, E is food, milk, produce, and paper.
I just wondered what, I guess it's different paper in E than what we have in C, because they both, here she is.
Different,
There's paper in both, but Miss Daniel is here.
yes.
Go ahead, Joe.
So the paper products we get from Imperial is different from the paper products we get from
On the original bid, when we.
Williams.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Williams, responded on those paper products, and they're usually less, because they're a bigger distribution facility. And what they don't bid on that we need, or they don't stock, another paper
You
company.
get-
Is
okay.
Imperial.
And Pineland paper, I guess, is picking up something too, because they're both listed on this one.
No, but that is, we're actually going from Pineland today.
Oh,
Everything that
okay.
we're getting from Pineland, we will now get. Dave was the lowest bidder. on the
Okay, gotcha, because they're both listed on there, but, yeah.
That's the, you talking about the bids?
Yeah.
They're
I'm
listed
talking about the
because of that.
memo,
On the memo.
on the memo
Maybe.
part,
D.
on E, it lists,
Can
it
you
says
click the
split
attachment?
award, actually. It's Williams Institutional Foods and Pineland Paper.
Go down.
Yeah, there we go.
So the prior year when we bid it out, the award got split, and she's keeping the products that we get from Williams for this school year, but they rebid out the products that Williams can't supply, and we're switching from Pineland to Dave.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And surplus buses.
And then the board and dairy is a rollover, as well as the Sunrise products. That's on there too. That must be attached. And then, you know, we are moving forward with buses, and these are the ones that are getting replaced, so we're surplusing them. And they need board approval to be able to go on govdeals.com. We also are getting 6 additional buses with CARES Act money. We had to prove that they were in addition and not replacement to be able to do it.
Madonna wants to know if we can offer those buses to our staff members before we put them on Gov Deals.
No.
God bless you.
Bless you. There's 19 buses, it looks like. 19? That's going well.
Oh, I don't, did you count them?
Yeah, that's good.
Those are the ones that are technically being replaced.
Right.
And then we're getting 6 on top of the 19.
And
So we have 25 new buses this school term?
Is it 25?
19 is 6.
Okay. I didn't count them.
And access control surveillance camera.
Yep, that is our annual support agreement with Adapt to Solve for all the cameras that we have in the district. It comes out of the IT budget. And we keep them busy.
I'll do it for 76 even.
You can't do it.
I can't,
The
but
last thing I'd like to talk about is our purchasing policy. I think we brought this to you last year, and I'd like to consider bringing it back to the table. And that's increasing our threshold from 30,000 to 40,000. Our bidding threshold is very conservative. The feds only require bids over 250,000, and we're at 30. And it would save a lot of, paperwork and just be more efficient if we don't have to bring it to the board if it's less than 40,000.
Any questions for Ms. Preston?
Well, how many, will we be able to sell all those buses? I mean, what's our record, as far as?
We usually are pretty successful at selling on gov deals.
Mhm. What do we get average?
It varies anywhere from
20, 25?
2,500 to
yeah, it's not much.
1,500, depends on the age.
Not a bad deal, $1,500 for a bus.
Yeah.
Seaside AFU for all selection
Yeah.
material.
A lot of people from South Florida buy them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Preston. Dr. Whitehead.
I may drive instead of my truck. That's newer. How many miles on that thing?
Have you ever been on like a big plane? Seriously.
Really?
Oh my God. I was just, you'd think there would be some good deals, but.
Hello.
Hey.
We have, of course, we're fortunate we were able to finish out our school year.
Right.
That's I guess the greatest COVID update that we could have. And thought I would just give you some yearly statistics related to COVID beyond, trying to accumulate what we have reported each month. The state has stopped our requirement to report out our stats weekly to DPH. So even if we run a summer program, we're not required to report out through the summer any longer. So our last update was when school ended that we had posted on the webpage. For the year, and again, these are cases that were reported to us, and we know we probably have cases that did not make it to our reporting for a variety of reasons, and one of those reasons being students that were on virtual. We did have some parents that had students at home on virtual that would contact us, but we know that we didn't collect all of that information. Out of the positive cases reported, there were 462 students that were reported as positive for COVID, which equated to about 3.59% of the student population. And out of our staff members, we had 177 staff members, which was a little over 9% of our staff that were reported as positive for COVID. And then quarantines for students, we were right at 19% of our students experienced a quarantine at least once through the school year. And so that gives you kind of that overall number. And then took a look at overall absences across the system for this school year. And looking at daily absences for the school year, and then looking to see what percentage of those absences were related to COVID. 21% of our absences this school year were COVID related. And so that just kind of gives you an idea of the impact that it's had for students attending face-to-face that we recorded that data for.
And that, excuse me, that would include the quarantines?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that would be, and that would include quarantines due to direct exposure at school, which is what we continue to catalog every day and weekly, but it would also include absences due to family exposure that students experienced that were quarantined because of someone at home. So every absence that we have marked related to COVID.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So what was the total number of quarantine students? You said 19%. Was there a number to it?
2,444.
Any questions for Dr. Whitehead concerning COVID? Now, this is probably our last COVID report forever, hopefully. And I want to say congratulations to Dr. Whitehead. She has certainly done this job admirably. I don't think folks realize that there are people that were upset that we were quarantining, there were people thinking we weren't quarantining enough. And she caught the brunt of that every day. And she came in, did her job, and on top of her job, handled the COVID. So thank you very much and a job well done.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You want to move on down, Dr.
Yes, sir.
Whitehead?
So other items on the agenda, if you look at 3K, I have the renewal for Performance Matters as an item for approval next week. And this is a renewal of our data management and assessment development tool. So I'm going to talk in just a minute about another assessment tool, but this is our system that allows teachers to create assessments and deliver those either online or on paper. But it is a data system that we're able to put all the data points that we have for students into that system, and our staff can disaggregate data, and it gives every teacher student level data specific to progress that students are making. The other component that we started a few years back with Power School, which absorbed Performance Matters, is the Talent Ed component, which is our evaluation tool for classified staff. So the funding source is the general fund, both out of the testing budget and the human resources budget. If you have any questions about that renewal. Okay. And then the last, I'm going to invite Dr. Green and Mrs. Miller to join me. We have been reviewing some options that we could consider in light of our learning loss and then moving forward. So not something just to fill in a void at this point in time for learning loss, but something that would carry us forward. And so we recently had a committee that we brought together to review some different assessment platforms that would then provide information for teachers to plan more efficiently and more effectively to meet student needs. And the MAP system is what emerged as our top choice. It was unanimous from the committee after we saw the presentations, and some of the selling points that were very important to us was that it will allow us to have a consistent assessment system from pre-K to 12 instead of having something just assesses elementary or just assesses middle or just assesses high school, and then we're trying to compare scores. As parents or grandparents, you may be familiar with, you get a Lexile report for this test, and then you get a different Lexile from something that was given the same week. And so this would put us on a consistent reporting status. It would also allow us to measure things we currently can't measure without a subjective viewpoint included, and that is a reading fluency assessment. They use a speech engine opportunity. It records a student's responses so that running record now becomes something that we can use as an objective data point. Right now, running records are performed with a teacher and a student one-to-one, and only that teacher that's currently administering the assessment gets to hear the student's reading, and they're making a judgment on how the student is reading and then asking questions. This system, and that can take up to 3 weeks per class, as we were talking about, especially with elementary people. This system would move it to a computerized version. It would be scored. The student's reading would be recorded. So every teacher that works with that child and a parent during a parent conference could replay that recording, and it would be information that would help meet the needs of that student. But the time frame now moves from about 3 weeks to get them all done to a 20-minute segment of time to test the entire class. So we're gaining instructional time. Another benefit to this is that because of their norming and their experiences in Georgia, they're currently with 83 districts in Georgia. They have developed norms nationally, and Georgia, the Department of Ed, recognizes their norms as valid and reliable for gifted eligibility screening for achievement. So we would be able to take the Iowa assessment off of the plate of our schools, and again, that interrupts with instructional time because it stretches out so long because of the requirements of giving that assessment. So we would be able to replace the Iowa and also have a universal tool for, again, all of those grade levels to look at gifted, where we've just been giving Iowa in 1st and 3rd grade. Now we would have an opportunity every year to look at those students who are definitely on the outskirts of data to show that they need to be stretched a little bit further. So we're looking to be able to purchase this. The CARES Act funding allows us to spend, and actually, in a way, forces us to spend a certain percentage of that money to look at learning loss. And so we are looking to use the CARES Act 3 funding for this. And by going with the 3-year plan that is proposed, it helps us with implementation and getting this off the ground with a strong initiative, and helps us maximize pricing to have the 3-year plan.
It mentions a dyslexia screener.
Yes.
Is that something new that we haven't had a
Yes.
tool for before?
That is new as well.
Okay.
We, the state actually passed legislation that starting in the 2022-2023 school year, I think that's the right year, or the following year, systems will be required to have a dyslexia screener, and this is built into the MAP Fluency. So we will already be ahead of the game with that and know what that looks like, and be able to work with that information.
That's a big question we often get from parents is, you know, the dyslexia screening, and do we have anything that we can, and without going through the whole battery of, you know, assessing a student for a learning disability, this is a quick way we can see, hey, yeah, here's a red flag.
Yeah, and then dive deeper if you need to.
And it starts as early as kindergarten, which is usually you don't find systems that start that early, so.
Okay.
It definitely gives a lot of meaningful data. One of the things that Dr. Whitehead did mention, but she talks about frequently is the Lincoln studies, the predictability for how we would be able to get information on milestones, EOC, EOG, as well as ACT, SAT. It's extremely high. I mean, believe high 80s, if not low 90s, now that they have so many counties in Georgia that they've done a lot of studies on. So we'll be able to come before our constituents and be able to say, we believe at this point, we'll, you know, plus or minus 3 or whatever, within this range for CCRPI component. So to be able to do that now and not just wing it or guess is going to be extremely critical for us.
Do we know what years 4, 5, and 6 look like financially? Or is this a one-time 3-year cost? I know probably some upfront costs with this, right? And then
That's right, we do, and I think probably if you look at the year 3, that's gonna be more along the lines of what the
Okay.
next years were, and I've talked with the rep about what kind of increases, and he said this is pretty much representative from year to year after you get past that first hurdle of training and other pieces that you have, that they don't typically see a lot of, you know, up costs and those things in the
my
districts they've been
system
working
just, what's that number? What's the
Well-
3-year number?
at. Year 3 is,
3rd year total.
247.
yeah,
247,000.
247.
But that's the same for year 2, and year 1 is actually 240. So that it's like they've split it up.
This shows
Equally.
reductions, period, across the split, and you can see, if you get a chance to look at it, there are yellow highlights that are the pricing for the multi-year.
Can we pull it up? Is it on? My system
It
system
is.
went down. I don't have it up
Yeah,
right
there
now.
we go.
Okay.
While we're looking at this, let me say this. One of the things I've asked them to do when we looked at this program is make sure that we're going to be cutting things over this 3-year period, so that when we get to the point that we want to keep this, then we've cut to.
Well, that's my point. It's like any grant. I mean, eventually you have to pay for it
Right.
yourself
Right.
if
And
you
so
think it's
we will
valuable.
be
So,
cutting.
I mean,
If we do determine that we're going to keep this after 3 years and it is working, then we're going to be looking to cut things that we already have. We have a bunch of things trying to do what this does.
Yeah.
right.
We
And
want to
that's
make sure
good.
that this can.
And it sounds like you are committed to it, but I would just make sure that we are, because the last thing we want to do is end at year 3 and
Absolutely.
do something else.
And we
You're
already
right on
know,
page, right?
yes, we already know, like I said, we can replace Iowa. The other thing that we're automatically knowing that we can replace unless a student is needing, and we've already identified them for Read 180, then we're eliminating the reading inventory for all students. It also integrates with Achieve 3000 and IXL. So once they take this assessment, we can take that data and import it into those platforms. So we're reducing the amount of testing time overall our students are doing. And we're definitely increasing instructional time when you look at what we're taking back away.
So I understand you said that they can start testing as early as kindergarten?
Yes, ma'am. And that's
That's the key,
unusual.
yes, yeah, okay.
So we've not up to this point really had an objective measuring stick for those early grades. And there are some of their components that are actually appropriate for pre-K. So we can start that. And the other nice thing, again, is that from all of those levels will be talking with schools about the same type of score. It won't be one score for this platform and another score for somewhere else. We can actually develop templates and progress monitoring tools for each of our schools that they're all talking the same language when we're talking about scores and reporting. And the reporting features that they offer get very granular, so we'll be able to really hone in on student groups and determine if there are issues that call for additional PL in a certain situation, or supports school-wide.
So would that help the collaborative teachers, the ones that go from student to student or class to class?
Yes, I think it'll be a significant benefit, and really, I think I'm looking forward to having all of the tools that we're looking at providing. The reading fluency, I think, will be a game changer for us. For those early grades, when we're really trying to hone in and have students reading on grade level by grade 3, we can start this super early and find out where our students are.
The same with the ACT, SAT, not to downplay, obviously, the college accelerator portion, but I think that the important part is that we'll have kids taking the test earlier because they can see that they're predicted to have success early. Because, essentially, we have most of our kids taking it their junior and senior year, and we should be having kids taking ACT, SAT sophomore year, at least. So with that predictability of seeing that you could potentially be successful, you're more likely to take the test.
And with that, we also think we can take a look again now to see how we can restructure our identification of students for programs like accelerated math, streamlining it, because right now it's a very restrictive group of students that we're identifying. And so we can change that criteria by being able to look at some of this data and hopefully open that up to a lot of other students.
And also misplacing children in those classes too is the other side of that, yeah.
So we would like for you to consider approving that on Tuesday. And again, we, in addition to just knowing that there are 83 current districts, they're expecting to be near 90 in the fall in Georgia. This is a national platform, so they have lots of supports built in. Local to us, as far as districts that we sometimes look to find out how we can advance ourselves in comparison to them, Bryan County implements map growth, and although they're no longer in First District RESA, Camden has also used them. So,
Mike, I'm not one that likes to buy a bunch of programs, and so when we do this, we've been looking at this for a while, months,
Sure.
And if it doesn't work, we're not going to use it. We're not just going to keep spending money that's not working, but we really are going to see what this does and what we can remove down the road. But we're going to take advantage of the CARES Act money to purchase this. So, any other questions? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Seals.
Good evening again. What I'm presenting tonight is a regulation in regards to employee transfers. What we're looking at is, of course, anyone who's looking to transfer for the following school year must have received a valid contract for the next school year in order to even be eligible to transfer or be considered for an internal hire. Transfer and internal hire requests, we're asking that those be completed by May the 1st for the upcoming school year. This allows time for school staff and school principals to be able to settle their staff, to see what they need to fill within their buildings. And once those people have been those items have been completed and those staff members have gone to their new schools, then we're asking that they stay there for 3 years. Because what we find is that going from school to school, we have some staff members who have jumped from school to school for different reasons. And a lot of times if you can stay there and work through things, learn the children, learn the administration, learn the protocols and procedures in the school, the staff member will stay. And so that helps build continuity, helps people to learn the culture and the climate and build the climate of the school. Of course, sometimes there are positions that open up during the school year that weren't available, and in the past what we've had the principals have talked to each other to see if that would be okay for them to do.
This is going to be an administrative regulation, so we're just showing you this. And is there any conversation about this regulation?
So if someone transfers, you're saying you'd like them to stay for 3 years?
They need to stay for 3 years.
However, I'm sure there may be exceptions here and there, and that'll be up to y'all to make that call.
Both principals will have to say
They will
yes.
have to agree to that.
We're just trying to put something in place. What's happening is, this year we said, okay, the last day of school you can transfer. Well, we have names coming in the last day of school. Well, that puts that principal, let's go back.
Being a rough situation.
And so we're trying to say, okay, we want to be fair. We want to let people go to the school if they want to go and interview. But we want to say, if you haven't moved by May the 1st, you're going to have to stay. Because we have some folks move right at the end. So we're trying to make it May the 1st.
So you'll open it up for
They just-
transfer internally?
They just apply. They would apply for the job like they did this year, and that worked well.
They did
They
work well
would
this
just
year.
apply for the job,
Very well.
interview with the principal, but, I mean, I'll just tell you, as principal of Glenn Academy, I would get people that wanted to transfer to Glenn Academy, and I would know how good they were because I could go watch them at the other school. I would interview people holding that person, and I'd interview 2 or 3 and go, I'll take this person. And so I get it, you're making your school better, but the longer we wait, the more you're gonna hurt that school that the teacher's coming from. So I just think May the 1st is a fair day, so.
And when you look at it globally, it's still an opening within our district that we have to fill. It's still an opening we must fill.
So the 3-year requirement, is that new? Is that
That's
doesn't
something
change
that
from
we
May
used
to
to have
May?
as a regulation,
Used to do
Okay.
that.
but we just kind of, we're gonna go back to it.
Okay.
If they transfer, they gotta stay there for 3 years.
Okay, so once they put in a request to transfer from
They're
J,
they're applying for a job
They're
at
applying
another
for the
school.
job.
or they're applying
They
for a
have to get
job
that
at
done.
another school,
Right,
I'm applying to leave Jane Macon and go to Glenn Middle.
right.
So my principal at Jane Macon gonna understand that, and then I'm interviewing at Glenn Middle. If Glenn Middle principal accept me, I'll be at Glenn Middle for 3
3
years.
years.
Minimum.
So, May 2nd,
Right.
I'm a 5th grade teacher and my dream job becomes available at Glenn Academy.
You go talk to your
As the
principal and
band
tell them.
director, whatever. That's just a pitfall we ran into before, and I had a huge major issue and conflict with administration about the fact that we were telling teachers they could not apply for open jobs in our
Right.
school system. That can't happen anymore, in my opinion. I mean, that's opened ourselves up for some major issues, in my opinion, where there's, I get that you have to have them in place, but we do it every day where we have to have a long-term job. It's not ideal. We can't tell people, we can't tell our own employees, you can't apply for these jobs. And without going into too much detail, the thing we ran into last time, the particular issue was there was a teacher who wanted to apply for a 5th grade position in another school. We told her she couldn't do it. So what do? We wound up hiring somebody who wasn't certified, who was a family member of somebody that worked here. And that's the recipe for disaster, okay? And that kind of stuff has to stop. The who you know kind of stuff has got to quit. And if you're not qualified, you don't need to have that job.
The reason we're doing this is because our lower performing schools get teachers in and train them, and then they go to our higher performing schools a few years later. Just like that. And I mean, I get it, but that's what happens. And so if we want all of our schools to do well, we have to have something in place that's gonna protect our lower performing schools. We have to, or else we're gonna see the same thing over and over again.
There's just a lot of scenarios running through my head right now.
Right.
Like I commit to 3 years. I agree with that 100%. But in my 2nd year, again, my job comes open. You just can't be. I just don't see how you can be hard and fast with that rule,
Well, I
just
think-
because there's gonna be other issues that come up. You gotta
Anything
be.
that's an administrative regulation.
Right.
superintendent can-
Okay, that's fine. Gotcha.
Well, let's keep going, Ms. Sills, while you're here.
Can I go grab my notes? I only
All
brought
right.
those notes.
While she's grabbing her notes, I'm gonna talk about 2.5. We had a couple of rezoning changes with the new Altama, only because we wanna make sure, can you make that bigger? We wanna make sure that when we do, that we remain, that Greer remains a Title I school, because that's a funding thing. And so I've already talked to you about Waverly Pines, Fairway Oaks, going to Altama, and those are the numbers. And then Beverly Shores would stay at Altama, but they would be riding a bus down. The Kendall would go from Golden House to Altama. But we added, going from Altama to Greer, that right side, or that east side of 17, which is Bell Point, Druid Oaks, Grayfield Drive, and Powers Landing. A lot of Bell Point already goes to Greer out of zone. We would just bring a bus in there and pick those kids up. So that's what we're looking at. And then if the parents say, in Bell Point that go to Altamont now, want to remain at Altamont, they can stay at Altamont until they leave that school. But anyone that's not currently at the school that we're transferring to would have to go through the I was on process. Any questions on that? We're just trying to balance it out so that we would keep Greer as a Title I school. We want to make sure the numbers are right.
Okay.
Geographically, that makes sense.
Well, that right side,
Yeah.
that east side, they were going out Altamont and then to Needwood, well, now they would just simply go to Greer and to Needwood.
And these will be permanent changes.
Unless we do a complete rezoning.
Right.
And we still haven't decided what we're gonna do with Glendale Elementary right now. So, but for now, yeah, that would be permanent, yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions about this? And we're in the process of contacting parents. We've contacted the parents up above Beverly Shores enough, but we haven't contacted the Bell Point folks. But again, most of those 26 kids in Bell Point already go to Greer.
Well, I think it's an olive branch by letting the ones that are out of zone already stay and finish out, and then
Yeah, and the whole thing started like this, guys. With Fairway Oaks and Greer, that's 111 students. With Fairway Oaks and Waverly Pine, that's 111 students that were at Greer. That school, they can see that school from their house. It just doesn't make any sense for those kids to go to Greer when they can, I mean, they're sitting there looking at that brand new school. I remember getting on a bus in Fairway Oaks and passing Altamont and Jane Macon to go to Burroughs Molecular, and it didn't make any sense. So, any questions there? All right, Ms. Seals? Yeah, I don't know, many years ago.
That bus probably didn't have AC, did it?
I don't know if it
Didn't
had
even have
wheels.
windows. Didn't even have windows.
All right, so there are some policies that we need to discuss, and we're going to talk about some of those now. A couple of them that are going to be state mandated. This is one of them. The teacher evaluations.
This particular policy will provide an opportunity for tenured teachers to be able to appeal their summative evaluations. It provides a process for appealing the summative evaluation, because the summative evaluation is truly the one that determines if that teacher is effective or not effective, basically. It also goes into all the other pieces in regards to the TEACS platform too. And it provides for the teacher an opportunity to appeal it after they have their summative evaluation conference, 5 days. Within 5 days of having that conference, they have to provide a written notice of appeal to the person who has done their summative evaluation. Even if it's not the principal who has done that summative evaluation, the principal is ultimately responsible for that appeal within the building. And they're responsible for responding to that staff member within 5 days as well. And once that has happened, they have a meeting. That person is responsible for reviewing all of the information within that file to go over that to see what the complaint is, the appeal is, and go through it and make a decision. If the decision that is made, if the teacher is dissatisfied with that decision, then that teacher then has the opportunity to appeal to a district level administrator who has been who is TEACS certified. And then within those 5 days, that person has to respond to it in writing. And once that has been done, it's final. Once the decision has been made, that it becomes final. But this has not been the case in the past. It does provide teachers with an opportunity to appeal it, but only if they're tenured and only if they're deemed ineffective or unsatisfactory.
Again, this is coming from GSBA.
Yeah.
This is a state policy. All right, and the next one also is.
The next one is state law as well. It's the paid parental leave. Most people are familiar with FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act. Well, this one is paid parental leave, which provides staff members full-time staff members who have worked at least 700 hours prior to this leave, an opportunity to qualify for 120 paid hours of parental leave. And the only qualifying events here are birth of a child, the placement of a minor child for adoption, and for foster care, which is a little bit different from FMLA. FMLA allows you to care for like a sick family member, or whether it be your spouse or your parents. It's 120 hours, and we would run it concurrently. Staff members could take the time in 2-hour increments It will run concurrently if they also qualify for FMLA. So sometimes you may have staff members who don't qualify for FMLA, but they may qualify for this. They will be allowed those 120 hours. If you have staff members who qualify for FMLA, it will run on top of that. Those first 120 hours will also be a part of FMLA as well. Staff members will have to complete the appropriate paperwork and turn it into the office as designated by the superintendent 5 school days prior to taking the leave.
Any questions about paid parental leave? Thank you, Ms. Seals. Mr. Boudreau. This will be Mr. Boudreau's final work session with us.
Thank gosh.
So Mr. Boudreau wants to sit on the back row today.
Okay? Mr. Blackerby.
Sir.
Facilities update.
All right, just, Glynn Academy, mainly we got one is the addition to the gym, which is progressing along well. They've got the block up, putting steel up for the housing for the new air conditioner units. Everything's progressing there on schedule.
Do you think, I mean, what is the schedule? What's the finished schedule? Will they be back in that building by Christmas, or do we think it's going to be?
The schedule is that air conditioning will be in place when the students return.
Okay.
The rest of the building will continue.
Obviously, right.
It's in 2 phases, but the pressing thing they're doing now is getting the close end of that building is going to house the air conditioning for the existing gymnasium done and in operation first. And that's targeted for early August.
There were some questions about Glynn Academy basketball team's summer practice. And they got the option to go to Glynn Middle or to the Grizzly Annex. We have gyms at both of those. So if air conditioning becomes an issue, they can practice this summer at those gyms.
Thank you.
Altown Elementary.
Altown Elementary, we're, all trades are on site and working. Getting most of the furniture is in all the classroom spaces. Started laying tile in the hallways. So glass arrived today for the courtyard area. So progressing along. It's still a day-to-day, week-to-week, endeavor to make sure we get in there. Hopefully we'll know something in the next 2 or 3 weeks. It'll give us a little more concrete idea of when we'll be able to move in.
Are we targeted to be in when school open?
That's the target. The target is to be in there when school opens, and so that, a couple weeks ahead of that, so we can also get Golden Isles moved over to the old Altama. We're prepping the old Altama right now. We're not moving any of the equipment and furniture out of there yet, or moving anything out of Golden Isles yet. But we are getting the carpets cleaned and getting the building spruced up a little bit in preparation for the move. But we're not going to move anything until we're very confident, 100% confident that we're going to get into the new Altama.
So the old Altama with Golden Isles, we're trying to start that this year? Yes. Have we notified the county and everybody of all the high traffic? It's going to be on Altama. It's going to be a lot of traffic on that part of town. I don't know if we just need to communicate that or anything, but that's something that they need to be aware of.
I'm talking with one of the directors of the county in the morning about some zoning and that. As far as the Center for the Arts, I do have the IGA back from the college, and they have made the changes that we requested last time, so we'll talk about that in executive session. East Boss 4 project.
East Boss 4 projects, which are essentially the ones we are starting this summer, which would be Needwood is the roof. The work started on that this week. We started the roof replacement part of that. That's the first phase of that, and then we'll roll into doing the HVAC as well as the inside of the building renovations. Golden Isles, again, holding off on doing any major work there until we make sure we get the move done into new Altama. If all that takes place, it'll probably be around that October 8th teacher workday time when we'll start doing most of the major work in both Golden Isles and Oglethorpe. We're still, Mr. Duke maybe give you a better update, but we are in the process of getting the pricing on those right now. For both Needwood, or for all three Golden Isles, Needwood and Oglethorpe. For the renovation portions, the only pricing we have is for the Needwood roof to date. Both Greer and Sterling are scheduled to get new gym floors. That should be starting this week or in the coming week. Those are the five that are on the books as we speak right now for each class 4. I believe if Google report's next, but if you the back page of the work session summary of that, it has the chart detailing the each class 4 receipts to date, and if you look at the May 21st, about 2.5 million was the receipt. The last page 6, well, the page 6 will give you the comparison between the last, the projected, the actual in the previous year. It was projected 1.7. We collected 2.5 as opposed to last year, which was 1.5. So receipts are way up, just as they were in the April collections.
Any questions for Mr. Blackerby?
Can we use some of that money to paint the exterior of Needwood, at least the front? We kind of talked about that a little bit. I kind of brought up doing something with the exterior of Needwood, even if it's the front facing parking lot. I mean, I don't know. It's just a suggestion. I mean, maybe it's just my personal opinion, and that's all it is. You know, it's not like I got a bunch of calls on or anything, but you know, I think it'd be nice to.
Not much paint there, actually. We looked at doing a heavy pressure washing to get, you know, the brick.
Maybe I'm thinking paint the brick.
Oh, paint brick.
People paint brick all the time, Al.
But they're taking the gutters and downspouts down now. A lot of the staining you see on there is due to the leaking gutters and downspouts. Once they get the new gutters and downspouts up associated with the roof, then we will do a heavy cleaning on that.
And in the renovation, we will paint the exterior paintable surfaces. They're not a great deal, but I think there's an underside of the canopy and some.
Okay.
So there are paintable surfaces.
Gotcha. Just not the brick. Gotcha. I'm not suggesting we paint Brunswick High's bricks. They use Brunswick High bricks, but maybe they use Needwood bricks. But anyway, okay. Maybe if we get another 2.5 next month, we can talk about it.
Did we get a guaranteed maximum price for St. Simon's?
Do we need to stand up and sit back down?
Take a break.
This might hurt.
This is just for the site work.
Yeah, this is for phase 1 site work. To give you an overview, let's cover this first. So this is to get the site ready with utility rearrangement, the demolition of buildings that must be removed in order to allow the first phase to begin, temporary fencing, and you can see the list there with survey allowance. We always hire the surveyor, not allow the contractor to, so that the survey data is consistent. And these allowances are funds that are set aside. If I don't think we'll spend $10,000 on a survey, so I think that we will come in certainly under these budgets, but there are some a number of surprises on that site in terms of underground utilities and unknown locations of things, and we've got a whole list of things to be investigated there. Playground equipment relocation is in here, utility discovery, an owner's contingency of $75,000, and that is work that the owner only can determine needs to be done. If it does need to be done, I don't expect to spend certainly all of that by any means. Pre-construction fee is a part of the contract that they're due for the when construction begins. And then the construction fee, the overhead fee, the bottom number is a portion of their overall fee for the work. Their overall fee was a little bit between $1.6 and $1.7 million. So So this is a portion that is set aside for this phase one site work. So the total is $684,951.60. And I would remind you that in this marketplace, we are developing a project that will be constructed probably over 3 years, possibly a little more. In today's market, it wouldn't be prudent to bid a renovation, for example, of the 1943 building that might begin in 2023, and then expect folks to hold prices for 2 years. So our strategy for awarding the work is McKnight's fee is a fixed fee, and we will bid publicly to McKnight and for the Board of Education's review and approval each phase of the work. So the next phase would be the 2-story classroom addition, and so I would call that now phase 2. Then the phase after that would be a gymnasium and a administrative addition and a kitchen facility. We'll have to build a new kitchen, operate the old kitchen while the new kitchen is under construction, and when the new kitchen is ready to go, the old kitchen will be demolished. And then the final phase of the work will be total renovation of the 1943 building. So that's what will stretch it out. We think the only reasonable way to get good, solid construction numbers is to bid the work in phases and award it in phases. So we'll come back to you in a couple of months with prices for the 2-story classroom building, another guaranteed maximum price proposal for that portion of the work, to which McKnight then would be due another portion of their overall fee. So that's the pattern that we intend to follow, and to me, I think the only prudent pattern that we can follow in terms of doing phase work. I think it would be a mistake and just get into a lot of requests for changes and increases of cost if we tried to bid work today that was going to be constructed in 2023 and to try to get somebody to guarantee a price. When you get a guarantee on the price is with a very much inflated price in today's marketplace. And I think it's a better risk for you to do it in phases and to pay a market price at the time for whatever that portion of the work is.
Any questions? Mr. Boudreaux, thank you for everything you've done for the Glynn County school system over the years.
Appreciate the opportunity to serve in the capacity that I did. I enjoyed my work and enjoyed working with everybody, so thank you.
Well, Al didn't pay me anything to say this, but as this has come up, I would report to you that I've worked with a lot of facility directors in my career, and I would rate Al at the very top of that list. So I think you've been fortunate to have him. I think we have been fortunate to have him.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al, we appreciate you.
3J, strategics. I sent in a newsletter maybe a month and a half ago about the strategics, and it had a video for you to review. Hopefully you did. So just kind of mention it to you, and I can talk about it more if I need to. But every employee will get a badge, and it will have a button on it, and they will have sensors around all of our campuses, actually all 20 locations. That's to include the transportation/stadium area, maintenance/stadium area, transportation, GICA, and there's one other I'm forgetting about, but all 20 of our areas. And so they would, if a fight broke out or if they needed an administrator, the employee would push the button 3 times, and it would immediately send it to the folks that needed it to be sent to, and they would see where they needed to go. If we needed to lock down the school, the employee would push the button 8 times, or basically just keep pushing the button, and we could lock our school down in a matter of seconds. And so the cost for it, when you think about the possibility that could save a life, is really not that expensive. Over the 5-year period, you can see the cost is $796, and then we own it at that point in time, and all we're paying them for is the badges for any upgrades that we might need to make to the technology. So we were using CARES Act money for this also.
Do they monitor it?
Rod, we monitor it, Rod's guy will monitor it, our administrators will monitor it, and they monitor it, yeah. So it will go straight to his person, and if you think about it, if you're sitting there trying to break up a fight, and you're a teacher and you see a fight, you just hit that button 3 times, you're going, instead of going to make a phone call. Or you see somebody come on campus that, you know, looks like they might have a gun or might have a knife or something, you start hitting that button rather than taking your cell phone and calling or going back to your classroom and calling. Just a matter of seconds that you save, I think it's worth it, especially with using the CARES Act money that we have.
I'm not usually really impressed with gadgets, but this was a pretty good deal here. The Genesis training call was able to get our folks to that location easily. This will help us narrow that down. It was a pretty impressive product.
Now, even at a football game, if something happens in the parking lot and the employee's there and sees it, they can hit the button.
So are these GPS, or are these based on?
It's based upon the close, to answer your question, yes, but it's based upon the unit that's closest to them. They've got alarm spaces around those. Whatever the closest location or work box is, it'll set that thing off and let us know.
So Scott has his own, and he goes from this school to
Right,
this school,
just
and
that-
just transfers
that's
over
right.
to that
Yep,
box,
yep.
so.
Even if I go to, Dr. Poulos has it in Darien, even if I go to McIntosh County and I hit the button, it's there. It comes up on their sensor though, not mine.
I was gonna say, do you lock
Yeah.
down their schools
Yeah.
or our schools?
The question I had was
Right.
whether
Yeah.
you transfer.
You know, the problem I had with it at first is I was like, well, then a teacher could lock the school down, and the superintendent in Metter, who's in Orisa, I was talking to him about it, and I said, well, he said, well, we had a teacher do that early on, she just got scared. He said, we used it as a drill, we retrained the teachers, and we really haven't had any issues, but you know, everyone that I've talked to, the superintendents I've talked to say it makes the teachers feel safer, so, and the employees. Any other questions about this? I can send you more information. This is just the price, so I have lots of information on it. You can also Google it and go back and rewatch the video. So they are the only provider of this. What's it be?
There's stuff out there that's similar, but nothing exactly like this one.
And finally, I have Coach Waters and Ms. Haywood with a policy that is also coming from the Georgia. This is actually coming from the GHSA.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. Mr. Waters and I, as opposed to making this a separate policy, we already have a policy in place for competitive interscholastic activities for grades 6 through 12 with descriptor code IDE. So what we've done is added this addendum to that, which would cover the House Bill 42, also known as the Dexter-Mosley Act, which allows for homeschool students to participate in extracurricular sports and activities in grades 6 through 12. And so what we've done is taken the criteria that was provided in the bill and placed it in as our criteria that we would use for any homeschool students that participate. And just to give you kind of a brief synopsis of what those things would include, students would have to participate in at least one course that's facilitated by the homeschool, and it can be virtual, during the semester in which the student plans to participate. They also must be enrolled for at least 30 days prior to their participation. Students must also meet the same eligibility requirements as public school students in order to participate. They also must live in the service area in which they plan to participate, meaning if they live within the zone of Glynn Academy, then they would have to participate in the sports at Glynn Academy. They also must provide, if they're doing any homeschool curriculum, they have to provide that information to us as well. And of course, GHSA still governs and sanctions those things that are for grades 9 through 12. But this is just to make sure that we implement a policy that is in alignment with the new law for Georgia. And it's effective July 1, which is why we'd like for you to consider this tonight, for it to sit on the table for 30 days so that we can have it in place for the beginning of this upcoming school year.
It's important to remember if they choose to do one virtual class, we get the FTE money for that.
Correct.
So we would actually profit.
So Does a student who's doing Georgia virtual on full-time qualify as a homeschool student?
So
Or do they have to be really part of a homeschool?
They actually have to be in a homeschool program.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
So that's a different,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Because we would give the FTE for those students as well through Georgia Virtual.
Oh, even if they don't,
I believe so. Is that right, Dr. Spence?
I don't know.
May have to look into that to make sure.
I don't know the answer to that myself.
We'll just hold on, I can answer that
I would be telling you a
later.
lie if I answered that with that. But I'll get an answer.
We can find
Okay.
out.
You know, somebody asked me about private school, and it doesn't count for private school.
Right.
The law specifically talks about private school does not apply under these auspices.
If
But
we
we
had
do
a,
have questions about that periodically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have a fluid students, homeschool students interested in participating in athletic activities?
I couldn't answer that. That would have to be a Mr. Waters question to
Yeah,
find out if
I've
he's
never-
got any
It's never
inquiries,
been a
but.
big thing. It's never been a big thing, so I think it might be now.
Maybe it was not because they didn't have the opportunity to, so maybe it wasn't an option.
Yeah, well,
before.
yeah, there was no option then.
So now since it's
And
an option.
You know, I don't know about the private school, I don't know if that's something they're considering. I know that with GICA, we've got a MOU with GICA for Dodge County, and we also have one with, what's the private, Heritage Christian Academy, where they're gonna send some kids. So I don't know how that would work, but they're gonna send some kids to GICA too. You have a question, Mr. Massel?
she took it.
Any other questions for Ms. Haywood concerning the Dexter Mosley Act?
Great minds.
All right.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. That is all I have
Thank you.
tonight. I do want to say three things real fast. We did meet with the Citizens Oversight Committee for the first time in a while last week, and we will meet quarterly on the Wednesday that Mr. Sammons comes with GOOD. And so that went well. And I've mentioned the other two as far as virtual FT and Macintosh Academy. We're going to ask you to sign an MOU with them at the next meeting. That's it.
All right, that brings us down to any other, before we move to executive session?
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for land, legal, and personnel.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Mr. Gibbons makes the motion, second.
I'll second.
Second, all those in favor? I think John's probably going for it. We're gonna go at 5.
It's actually 6:00 and 6:17.
You set the mic
to return to open session.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Sands, need a second, please.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gibbons. And a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Who wants that one?
Same.
Ms. Gibbons, second.
second.
Ms. Sands, the ladies are taking us home.
Is it 2 for
All
1?
those in favor?
We
It
leave.
is unanimous with 5-0 at 7:13.